Okay, well, welcome back to the media stage here at the AGENTIC conference, and it is my pleasure to be joined by lots of our different speakers and sponsors, exhibitors, and just generally the glitterati of the AGENTIC world. And I'm joined this afternoon by Brooke, Larson, who is one of the co-founders at Rime, one of our speakers and sponsors here, and I'll let her introduce for herself what Rime is. Brooke, who is Rime?
Yes, so I'm Brooke Larson. I'm one of the co-founders here at Rime, and we provide text-to-speech for generally large-scale enterprise applications, but particularly ones that require novel, nuanced, characteristic voices.
Well, and let me start there.
Yeah.
You talk about Rime being a place where AI voices have personality.
Right.
We've all had that experience of in days gone by of calling a call center or talking to some chatbot that has a very bland, very
Indeed,
monotone
yes,
kind of way of
yes.
speaking. Just talk to me about what's important for these models to have personality to them. Why does that matter?
Because there's a reason why we're talking with our voices right now as opposed to sending text messages with one another.
Yeah.
It conveys very nuanced, very subtle, but very important information that goes beyond just the words that you're saying. And so at Rime, we take that as the starting point for what we want to do with voice AI. Now, I think this is sort of an interesting distinction. Most providers out there, and it's really easy to do, scrape the internet, scrape YouTube, audiobooks, and so all the voices that are out there sound maybe not robotic anymore. We've moved beyond that, but they also sound maybe inappropriate to the
Okay.
context.
Okay.
Whereas we have our own recording studio, we bring in regular people, oftentimes people who have contact center experience, and create our voices from those naturalistic sort of performances.
Okay, well, and that's an interesting thing because I don't think many people would know that most of that kind of audio data that has trained these models historically has come from essentially professional level content creators. What are the nuances then that you see in these voices? How are they different?
I think and I'll do this myself right now, people make mistakes when they're talking. They might start a word and then not finish it, and
Okay.
then restart, or include lots of ums and uhs. And we oftentimes sort of misperceive these as negative things. And oftentimes they are in the case of like literal performances.
Yes.
But in terms of conversations, these are key sort of means of conveying, again, very subtle information about when your turn is up or whether you're about to say something important.
Right.
If I'm about to say something important, I might stutter a little bit just to convey that something I'm thinking about what I'm saying next.
Yeah.
And this is oftentimes gotten rid of, scraped from the performances of actors for good reason.
Yeah, I was going to say, even if you think about some of the video editing applications that are out there, they have
Indeed.
this kind of button you can press now to just get rid of all the ums and ers or all of those little pause moments.
And even things very subtle, like when I'm about to speak, I might go, well, the little thing.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
These are important that we capture that, again, very subtle but make a big difference in conversation.
So if you think about where this is going in the future, these models now are getting so good that we probably can't always tell the difference.
Indeed, yeah.
Between when we're talking to a real person and when we're talking to a text-to-speech or language
Indeed.
model-powered voice. Just how at Rime are you advising clients and customers to think about making it sound too real almost?
Yeah, I think it's going to sound too real in that sense very soon, if we're not there already. And I think there's legal implications. So a lot of the times we have to be very explicit, have the voice say that it is an AI voice. We use a lot of euphemisms like digital assistant and so on and so forth, but we nevertheless have to be straightforward with that.
Yes.
But I also think at some level, eventually once people get used to this, it'll be a sort of fun thing. You can relax a little bit when you know you're not dealing with a human. You don't have to be, as polite necessarily, or
Right.
you can just, joke around and feel relatively relaxed talking with one of
Okay,
these.
so you actually see that people adjust to that kind of behavior, you think, over time?
Surprisingly, so we find, even for one of our larger customers, we're very explicit about that it's an AI voice for
Right.
those customers. I think there's legal implications for that. But nevertheless, we find like a surprising percentage of people, maybe 50%, saying thank you at the end of the call. Now they know it's not they know it's not a real human at the other line, but nevertheless they're compelled to say thank you. At the
Okay,
end.
so people are still kind of bringing that human behavior even when it's an AI perhaps at the other end of the experience. Now across all the different use cases that you guys see, kind of it's not always on the phone. There are kind of different nuances
Indeed.
in terms of people talking to these chatbots or voice assistants, particularly if it's on a visual kind of device. Just what differences do you think about when you kind of design voices for these different use cases? Is there something specific we need when we're on the phone to someone that is different from elsewhere?
I think so. I mean, a lot of the difficulties with, say, multimodal, say with visual and the AI at the same time is we do a lot of very subtle things with our lips while we're talking that people very much key into, and any deviation from that makes things a lot more difficult. Whereas over the phone, you don't have that problem. What we find is not so much the multimodal differences being key, but rather where you're doing these voice interactions, say on the phone versus a kiosk or at the drive-thru.
Okay.
And these are, I think, the relevantly different components for us. And there, the way people talk on the phone, for example, is very different than when you're at the drive-thru, where you're just trying to convey curt information.
Right.
And the difference is less so on how people are talking, but more what we allow the agents to do. So, for example, on the phone, we can sort of obviate the need for a lot of call center employees in general, but at the drive-thru, it's more about, most of the time at the drive-thru, the person taking your order is simultaneously scooping the fries,
right.
and they don't like that. And so there's just talk today showing that where these AI voice have been implemented in the drive-thru, there's better employee retention, for instance, because they don't like having to do this multitasking and deal with the customers while they're scooping the fries. We obviate that need.
Yeah. I mean, the drive-thru is an interesting kind of use case that we've seen a lot of innovation in recent years. Examples from McDonald's rolling things out at quite a lot of scale. Chick-fil-A testing things as well in different models where they're used to having people in the mix there. That modality is quite a different environment to design for, I'd imagine as well. You're shouting out the window of a car into a kiosk that's 4 feet away from you, which is not the same thing as having a high quality, almost broadcast level microphone in a phone. Just how do you design voices that cut through in that environment that's different for a drive-through?
I think important for us is the models that we train on. So again, there's the voice data out there for these sort of interactions that in principle you could train on is very low quality. So the typical sampling rate is 8 kilohertz for over the phone. Very low, not good enough. And so we have very high quality microphones that sort of cut through that sort of component. I think more important than the actual quality of the medium is getting the words right. Now, I think in particular the fast food instance is interesting because they're changing their menu items very frequently.
And they're not real names, are they?
Bonkers names
the McCrispy or the Super Deluxe, kind of whatever it might be, is
made up words,
not normal language.
And so our models in particular, and this is again a differentiator for us, is that we can stipulate by hand when a new menu item comes in how it will be pronounced, and it will never deviate from that.
Right.
Nevertheless, it'll fit in constantly with the flow of the conversation. So I think that's, especially for, again, most products, it doesn't necessarily have to be fast food. Having that sort of controllability and reliability is really key.
Now, in closing, one of the things that we've seen a lot about here at the conference is this discussion around language and being able to move across different languages and what kind of use cases that enables. When it comes to designing voices that people will speak to, how are you guys thinking about making sure that kind of cultural context of a language comes through? Not just that it's got the word accurate, but but it feels like the right language.
Yeah, indeed. So again, we take a particular approach wherein we're not. Maybe I don't think the technology is there yet to do this at scale. We actually have bilingual people come in. So in most of our use cases is English and Spanish. And so instead of trying to get an English voice to pronounce Spanish correctly, we'd rather get one and the same person to pronounce them both flawlessly. We literally, since we control the data that we collect, we have people read or converse where they're flipping back and forth between these two languages, and that really makes a big difference, I think.
And of course there's even the challenge, particularly when it comes to English and Spanish, that you kind of get this Spanglish kind of situation. How do you handle that?
So we treat it as effectively a complex single language, and we're doing the same thing with Hindi. So Hinglish,
English,
is really,
and
that's maybe arguably even more intense. And we've effectively treated it as the same language. We intermix the different writing systems in the case of Hinglish, not so in Spanish, But the only difficulty there is occasionally there's words that are sort of ambiguous between which language
Right.
they're supposed to be in. You know,
Okay.
say like Maria or something. There's different ways to pronounce it, whether it's English
Yeah,
or Spanish.
depending on the
Those are the tricky ones. Those are edge cases, though. I think.
Yeah. Well, whatever language you guys are speaking or listening to at home, Rime seems to have you covered. Thank you so much
Indeed.
for Brooke for joining us from Rime. And if you want to find out more about them, check them out here at the booth if you're watching or online. Where can they find you guys?
At rime.ai.
Very easy to find. Rime, R-I-M-E.
Oh, yeah, indeed. I should stipulate. R-I-M-E.
It's on the hat. It's on the hat,
indeed.
folks. Don't worry. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thanks.